Hello, my name is Al Abramson. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Engagement for the National Armaments Consortium. One of our strategic messages is to collaborate, innovate, and dominate. I'm thrilled to be here today to talk about one of our inaugural Advanced Weapons Technology Summit being held here in Huntsville, Alabama. It's an awesome event with an awesome agenda. We have over 700 registrants. We have over 60 government briefed requirements to the tune of about $4.5 billion worth of work. Today, we also have a lot of government senior leaders, thought leaders that are here today. And today I have with me Mr. Anthony Stasio. Mr. Stasio's title is the Director of Manufacturing Capability, Expansion, and Investment Prioritization. Did I get that right?
It's a doozy, yeah.
In my line of work, the longer your title is, the more important the man is. And so, one, we want to say thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us today. We know you just came off stage talking to the folks and just wanted to spend a little bit more time with you to get some more of your insights and get some of your perspective, if that's okay.
Of course.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. And the first question I'd like to get, what is your overall impression, if you will, about the first ever Advanced Weapons Technology Summit?
So the first thing I noticed when I walked into the room today, as you know, having been in this community for close on to 20 years now, attending multiple different conferences, different events, things like DMC or JANF or JimTip or all these different conferences. The first thing I noticed was the diversity of the group. So, you know, you go to JANF or a JimTip event, you're going to hit the scientists, the engineers. But what I saw in the audience as I was giving my presentation, I saw some DoD leaders, I saw industry titans, and I saw like economists, I saw some private capital out there. So I think it's a very, very good signal that the dynamic of how the DoD invests is changing. 10 years ago, if you went to something like this, you'd have a bunch of service members, a bunch of civilians, usually related to one topic, talking about one thing. Now it's all over the place. I saw people out there from the Department of Commerce, Department of Energy. So that was the first thing that struck me, is the broadness and the diversity of the audience compared to some of the previous meetings that I've been to.
So a whole of government approach, one
Correct.
would say.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but it's not only the whole of government. It's really the whole of government plus industry, but not necessarily just the industry. Like you're expected to see the Raytheons and the Northrops and the Lockheeds, but what you don't see is folks with venture capital in the audience or private capital, like the economists. Now you're starting to see that, which really was the goal of, at least one of the goals from my perspective when they stood up my position.
Yeah, sure. So you provided a lot of great information, a lot of good information, how to reach out to you, a lot of the things that your office is doing. There's a lot to unpack with that.
Sure.
Is there 1, 2, 3, 5 things from what your message was today that you wanted to foot stomp, reinforce, and to provide to those that are watching us today?
So the most important thing I would say, I think, is the roadmaps.
Okay.
So in my presentation, I had a couple of roadmaps. I had the critical minerals and materials one, I had the kinetic capabilities one, and then I had the big plays. Folks ask us questions a lot about, why aren't you doing X, Y, or Z? Like, why aren't you investing in this? You know, if you go back 3 years, it was like, why aren't you investing in lithium? Because we only have the money to invest in neodymium and scandium, lanthanum, the rare earths. So everything is laid out over time. So the number one message I would say would be to look at our investment roadmaps, figure out where your idea, where your technology is for that particular area, because the investment roadmaps are not all the same. So kinetic capabilities, the focus is on onshoring. Now, if you compare that to the microelectronics one, microelectronics, we're trying to sustain that which is made here for the DoD. So they're very different investment strategies. So that would be number one. And then number two, I would say is honestly just follow the office. I feel like there's a lot of industry members out there that just, scroll through sam.gov. But for the appropriations that we've been given thus far, it's very simple to just click on the industrial base policy. Folks that are in industry that are doing like capture or government relations, business development, whatever, industrial based policy is probably very low on their list of like, where can we get funding, right? We're trying to change that. There's a whole new website. We've done a strategic communication outreach sort of thing. So first and foremost is be informed, look at the roadmaps, look at your area, if it's batteries or mining or chemicals or weapons or hypersonics, whatever. Look at what we're investing in now, why we're investing in it, and then a simple email like, hey, are you going to get around to X, Y, or Z? Yes, in FY25, we're doing downstream investments or something like that. So those would be the two that I think I would want I hope the audience took to heart.
That's good, because you talked about, and you mentioned sam.gov, and us on the industry side, it's like ragu. It's in there, but you got to find it, right? And not just because you're sitting here, but I want to commend you because your office does very well to communicate, from my perspective, to industry about what is coming up, the decisions that you have made, and that helps us do some internal investments, our own, to make sure that we can either link in with you, partner with you, or look at other things that we need to do. So I want to say I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another thing is, it's about providing a capability to the warfighter in the defense of our nation.
Of course.
And your focus, really, part of your focus, many focus, is strengthening the defense industrial base, making sure it's resilient, and those kinds of things. So it's all kind of connected. But in terms of looking at what tomorrow's defense industrial base looks like, what are some of the challenges, if there are, from your perspective, that are in front of us that you are looking at or would like to try to mitigate, if you will, as we get to what tomorrow's industrial base looks like, which relates to tomorrow's weapons, if you will?
Sure. So first and foremost, the defense industrial base of tomorrow is going to be global, more global than it is now. So that's one of the reasons that we've been working with Congress to try to expand the authority of the Defense Production Act to our close allies, specifically the UK and Australia. We want to align with AWTS because we know that our defense industrial base supply chain is a global supply chain. So that's first. Second is the whole idea of on-demand manufacturing that doesn't work, at least not in the geopolitical climate that we're in now. We need smaller, faster, more flexible, not these massive facilities like World War II production sort of style. You mentioned resiliency. We need multiple locations that can flip and change and do different things. And then part of that is understanding and realizing that the Department of Defense cannot, is not, and will not support any industry by itself. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you could talk rocket motors, right? We have private rocket motor companies now. Microelectronics is the obvious example. We're never going to buy more chips than Apple. But one thing that we are going to need is the raw materials for all of that. We may have specific requirements for those raw materials, or the end products may have to be radiation hardened if like space applications, but still not exclusively DoD. That's why I tried to turn the investments as much as I could to the upstream. Because regardless of what the defense industrial base looks like 10 years from now, we're still going to need the lithium, the nickel,
Yeah,
the cobalt,
absolutely.
the manganese, all those different chemicals, all those different minerals and materials. And the trick is we want to make sure that we have access to them through a domestic or an allied supply chain. And for those that are deemed very critical, we want to make sure that we control that supply chain ourselves.
Yeah, very good. Hey, so last question, maybe. I think I know the answer.
Okay.
But what are your thoughts about events such as this that provide a collaborative space between government, industry, and academia?
I could not sing the praises more highly. For someone in my position, coming to an event like this saves not only time, but taxpayer dollars. In 3 days here, I am probably going to have upwards of 20 different meetings with different industry partners, different parts of the Department of Defense, different parts of federal agencies, whether it's Commerce or State or Interior. And now you're talking about 20 plus different meetings in one location. How many trips has that saved me? So it kind of goes back to my answer to the first question. The first thing I noticed is the amount of the broadness of the audience and the different types of background and history and expertise. So I think this is an absolute must attend. If you have, especially if you're doing anything in kinetic capabilities from chemical synthesis to biomanufacturing, all the way up through weapon integration and production, this is where you need to be, right? There's other meetings, if you want to be on the super scientific side, you have the JANFs and things like that, but that's not what this is. These are policymakers, decision makers. These are folks that are going to steer investments, steer policy, change tariffs. That's the first thing that I noticed, and this is
the place to be.
I made it a point to come to this one. There's a critical mineral and mining meeting going on actually in Australia right now. And I was like, all right, my team's doing that. I'm going to Huntsville.
You missed out on a trip to Australia.
I did.
That's how important this is.
Yes, I absolutely did.
That's good. So, one, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your insights. We thank you for coming. We thank you for spending time with us today. For those that are watching, thank you for watching. Please join us on our NAC website. Join us on our LinkedIn account. If you have any questions, please reach out. And until next time, collaborate, innovate, and dominate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're the man.